are calling our special meeting to order, and we would like to begin with the pledge. Superintendent Bean, would you please lead that for us?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. At this point in the meeting, we offer the opportunity to anybody that is with us today that would like to participate in public comments to do so. I'm guessing our cameraman is not interested in doing that, so we can go ahead and move on to the approval of our minutes. Could I please have a motion to do so?
Motion. Second.
Thank you. And can we just do a voice vote? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, I should say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Anybody abstaining? Our minutes are approved. And at this point, I need a motion to please move us into closed session to conduct our superintendent's evaluation.
I move that we move into closed session for superintendent's evaluation. Support.
Thank you. We are now in closed session. So we are returning to open session, and Superintendent Bean, would you like to deliver your superintendent's report, please?
I would just like to say we have been thinking about our neighbors over in Oxford. We have quite a process in place, but we always review those processes. Our risk assessment process that we have, anytime we think there might be harm that a student might bring to themselves or others, and going through that, that's something that's served us well for many, many, many years. We have our emergency operations plan for every single facility in the district. This is a little bit more on the reactive side, but the bedrock of our proactive side is really our relationships that we have with kids. It's so interesting that this issue of violence in schools is something that has been studied by the United States Secret Service. And what they say over and over and over is that the most important tool that you have is how well you know your kids. And you have to just continue to stay focused on that, and I feel good about that. But anytime, it's terrible to say that there have been multiple tragedies in our country around this issue of school violence, but it causes us all the time to just revisit our own processes and procedures. So we've been doing that, and our hearts continue to be with all those touched by this in Oxford. I don't have anything else.
Thank you for saying that. I think we all agree with you on that. Very, very hard. At this point, we are moving into board communications. Does anybody have any this evening? Okay, well, there was one thing I was hoping we could share. You know, we have our organizational meeting in January, and that's the time we sort of dictate the structure of our board, what offices everybody's going to hold, and what committees people are going to sit on. And as you've all heard me say many times, my daughter's, my baby's her graduation was my 36th and final graduation at Eastern, because I was retiring and then I wasn't. And so the plan has always been that 6 years later, it is time to move on to greener pastures. I don't know, this is a pretty green pasture, pretty awesome place to hang out. But I would hope that we can think ahead a little bit, that we want to make sure we are pondering what January is going to look like. So I'm hoping it's okay with you guys if I just think out loud. Obviously, we have many people at the table. You can all serve in many roles. Marty, I brought to the first year and said, you need to step in for me. And Marty is a passionate curriculum lady, and she has done a beautiful job, and she shepherds that part of our organization beautifully. So just, again, one of the things that pops into my head is that maybe Suzanne or Nicole, as our next senior members, would be the next person possibly to sit in the seat as you ponder when January comes around. And just knowing that what we've always done is sort of know who's on the ballot next and make sure that they're in a position that the community recognizes that they are trusted members of the board. So I'm obviously hoping to step down at this point and leave that open to whoever we choose to fill that position. And Nicole, if you're in a position that you might think that's the same thing, it's kind of nice to go around the table and understand who's where and doing what, so we can have a little bit of a discussion about what might come in January. Is that something we can do briefly? Okay.
Well, I'm happy to go. I will not be running in November next year, just so everyone does know that, which means that there will be a position open in November of next year. So in January, as we are kind of looking at positions, we'll want to think about, who does go in that president's position is going to be there, for a significant amount of time. So it would not be me. It probably would want to be Suzanne or something like that.
Okay.
Yep.
And so that also brings to question,
Yeah, just something to think about.
right? And that also brings into question, if Nicole's currently our treasurer and our finance committee chairman, that is a big void to fill as well. And if it does turn out that Suzanne moves up, I guess we should look at you. Are you still in that mindset that you'd like to continue in the curricular capacity?
I would love to,
Okay,
but as I have said frequently, and I have to balance these, but I've always said, I mean, I will serve where I'm needed. I would prefer not to move into your chair because I would feel stretched too thin. I would have to give up something else that I love. That's the hard part. That's the
Right.
stretch part.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That looks at Suzanne
Or
I'm gonna check
LGB.
out the treasury.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about all this in January, but if it does turn out that way, we have Nicole stepping down, we have Suzanne potentially moving into the position, and so we have Kristen Fossen. And that's an important part of our organization. We're responsible for balancing budgets. So maybe just some idea of the fact, is that something you'd be interested in? Don't answer now, but just let's start processing how
As
that
someone
works.
who's been part of the finance committee
Exactly.
last
Us
year.
three have been finance
Yes.
committee.
Thank you.
committee at a time.
Okay, and then obviously we can talk about committees. You have somebody that's expressed interest in curriculum. So just come January, be prepared to speak to how you would like to serve yourself, because I love when you all enjoy what you're doing in the organization, but what's also best for our organization going forward, that it's in its best hands.
The other thing from the old guard perspective is, one thing we did before was we would sometimes have rotations on the committees for a season. So that's something else to throw out there, that when I came on, I was on finance, then I was curriculum, and then back to finance. So kind of in the spirit of serve where needed, but also for exposure. So that's just something to throw out to, for people to think about on committees when you're thinking about that in January.
I did find it very valuable to do 2 years on finance committee before moving to the curriculum committee, because there is so much understanding of all those different pieces. And I do want to mention too, that Suzanne, obviously, you might be considering moving into that seat, that I would consider being secretary, if that's something that would be needed. But again, we determine together, where people should be
Right,
moving.
absolutely.
Well,
That's good to
and
hear.
now that you have all been to MASB, there are courses on all of this too, and they're very short courses. I remember when I stepped into this position, I think it was a 4-hour, half a weekend kind of thing, and it was wonderful, because it gave me really great perspective on, and I had already sat on the committee, I think, for a couple of years, so it goes deeper, and then knowing the relationship with Julie. So it's not, stepping into the committee chair is not like, hey, here you go, there's resources, there's a transfer.
on that fire.
Yeah, there's transfer of guards, so whoever does, we could do it as a mentorship as well, so it would be course, mentorship till November, getting Julie involved, in that conversation, so it's, again, not just a, here you go. Which could be scary, it can feel scary, but there's a lot of, as you know, once you're on it for a little bit, things finally start cooking.
But I assume that's one of the reasons why it's so good that somebody would be in a position for 6 years or 4 years, because it does take time to really train into the position, and nobody is throwing anybody to the wolves here. We're very supportive of everybody on this board.
But I do like Suzanne, I will say, I think it's good to move around. It's
It
good
is.
to, and you get, when
Absolutely.
you're on curriculum, I was there for a couple of years too, and that does, it gives you perspective.
I was in finance first.
Yeah.
Several years before.
Yep, that's very good to have a little taste of all parts of the organization. Maggie, you didn't weigh in yet. I do believe there are some thoughts that you will have some ownership of the foundation, right?
Yeah,
Let's
so
talk
we
about
did,
that a little bit.
we did talk about, me taking over the liaison role for the foundation. And I'm great to do that. We're gonna meet next Monday with Elizabeth. And yeah, so I'm excited about that opportunity.
That will start in January.
Yeah.
And so she'll be the foundation liaison, for the foundation, and,
February grants.
yeah, that's fun.
That big checks.
So does that just, everybody has a little feel for what January looks like and can process it and get a feel for what you'd like to do and what we all should do for the organization, right?
And then in January, you've talked to everybody about how it actually works in January.
Well, it's an organizational
Still
meeting.
meeting.
Yep, and that's what we were talking about. We
Yeah.
traditionally just arrive to our 7 o'clock meeting early. you know, and somebody makes a motion as to what that slate of officers is, and it's an approved, we approve it, and then you move into your 7 o'clock board meeting with your new team,
Oh.
sitting at the table.
Right then and there.
Right then and there.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted you to have a chance to think about it first, so once we sit down in January, it's, people feel really good about what they wanna do, and we're a pretty good group that tends to be able to find consensus, so it sounds like everybody has a feel for where we're at and where we need to go, right? Well, that was easy. Anything else? Okay, then the only other thing, we talked, you notice the other thing that is on the table is this little, self-assessment. As you heard, Suzanne and I went to MASB, and we were both taken aback at what a great resource and tool that could be for our organization going forward. This is nothing I'm gonna claim the mastery to be able to walk you through, but just quickly and for fun, if you notice the first page, it just gives you an overview of the several categories that you spoke to. And so if I just asked you to give me one quick observation, does anybody have one?
On that first color coded one?
Just the cluster analysis, this one.
My immediate observation was, I appreciate that we envision ourselves as not knowing everything under the sun, believing that you are the best at everything and that you know everything is folly. So I do like that we have approached this very honestly and see that, you know, in some ways it's really high on our scales, and in other ways we have questions that now we know how to pursue perhaps some answers to. So I like that. I like that we look at it honestly and leave ourselves space for growth.
Great observation. Anybody else? But you get the idea, this is what a facilitator would do for you. So as you flip through to some of the specifics,
One thing Mary, I would say
Yeah.
that I think is worth noting
Yeah.
is that none of us ranked any of these categories as don't know. And I think that's really important.
these no, but as you get further in, you will see.
I know, but
Okay.
on average,
Great.
I said, I think
Right,
it's
right.
nice that as a board, we all have some degree of information of how these things are handled. and who does
That is also a great observation. Yes. Point of pride too, because you guys are all very good about asking questions and finding information. And, you know, as I've said many times with correspondence and whatnot, rarely, I'm guessing you would all agree, do we have to say, I don't know, we have a great leader, a great teacher, and we are a transparent organization that shares information. So I'm glad we were able to, speak to this and feel that we did have that breadth of knowledge. So just, I'm not gonna go through all them, but when you look at leadership, the idea is, what do you see? How do we feel about ourselves in a leadership capacity? Anybody else with a thought?
Well, I usually need to sit down and read this a little
Well, and
bit.
again, so
Yeah.
dark green is excellent, light green is good, yellow
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
you know, satisfactory.
I think the most important one is the one that is all green.
Yeah, so we seem to think we're doing okay, and again, don't look at all the specific, you
Right.
can, but the
Right.
whole idea is,
Right.
this might be one of those things we feel good about, I'm guessing how we work together and how we, embrace the district and how we sit in our roles. As you get further in, look past leadership, go into academic performance accountability. Take a peek at that, and again, it's not to memorize, it's just to take a quick glance, you saw the last one was lots of dark greens and light greens and yellows. And this one we have a few oranges, we have a few needs improvements. So what does that tell you?
Academic.
It helps us focus where we want our growth.
Exactly, it's a goal-setting exercise and opportunities for Dan to realize that maybe his board needs a little more information. And, you know, you've heard me tell the story a million times when Mike Washburn was here. He would start with a group 20 steps back, and I would be exasperated because we'd heard it 50 times before, and at least 5 people would raise their hands and say, I didn't know that.
Right.
So we don't know what we don't know, and it's very helpful, I think, to get a feel for those things that, and I will be honest with you, how old am I? And I have a few I don't knows on here. So, and it doesn't mean we need to know, but those are the things we look into, and I will tell you mine before we get to it, was scorecard. I don't know what that is, and maybe we don't need to know, but it's just one more opportunity to see who we are and where is it we might wanna go.
I definitely put I didn't know on that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there are a few of us. So the academic performance accountability, this one kind of made me giggle. Question 4, there's one of every color under the rainbow. So that's an opportunity we need to work that provide your policy a process by which the board deals with complaints from the public and consistently uses the process. Not shocking, and we're working on it. We have a wonderful man that's gonna help us get through that and make sure that we are consistent and confident in the ways that we work with our constituents in our community, right? So it should not be shocking. Flip through a little further to, can't turn my page, I'm so sorry.
So pages are numbered too.
Oh, thank you. So board responsibilities is 15 of 25. I just don't want to leave the show. Thoughts? Just, again, quick glance. I don't want you to do it, but when you look at that first page, what do you think? What do we think about our board effectiveness or our ability to handle our responsibilities? it appears we feel pretty good about that. Yep. I do like that we feel good about how we make decisions as a group, and I would agree with all that. Obviously, we all said the same thing. So that might be the kind of thing that we feel good about it. There's a few areas there that we have some differing opinions, and those are the things that we call out and realize that we're not on the same page, right?
What I think is interesting is that we have across the board unanimously believe that we demonstrate professional and ethical decision-making skills. And then come to review its code of ethics, we have don't knows that there is even a code of ethics.
Well, that was my other don't know. Right. And I thought of it as guiding principles. So maybe it's just a clarification of terms, define your terms and understand what you're speaking to. So, all right, when we get to data-driven decision-making, that's when we're all looking for a little more information. Great, our superintendent can realize that we might need a little more teaching. We all need to learn as we go, and that's gonna help hopefully inform him as we get deeper into this and do this with a facilitator, figure out the areas that we would like a little more stuff, okay? Our board superintendent relations, good. It sounds like we, have some concerns about sometimes getting in Dan's way, and that's a great observation on our part, and we need to make sure that we are very cautious about that and empower him and equip him to do his job and make sure we're doing ours, right? And this is just me, and again, you guys can,
I think you've looked at this before.
I didn't,
Yeah.
believe it or not, I did
Oh.
not.
Oh, okay,
I thought I was going to,
can't
but.
process, I process quickly, but I can't.
In all fairness, I went through the assessment, so when I see a lot of green, I realize that's a place that the group feels pretty good. When you see a lot of different colors, you have some inconsistencies, and it might be a place to see that the group gets on the same page.
Yes,
If you have a lot of red, you have a problem. We don't-
Question 3 is interesting, the clear set of expectations for performance. And in the comments, it specifically says Marzano's evaluation tool could be improved. And
Right.
so that obviously would impact our understanding of those criteria.
Exactly. Okay. All right, hold on, I got ahead of myself. Board superintendent relations, we talked about that idea of making sure we're all, in bounds and doing the right thing and taking care of each other, and respecting each other's positions and our superintendent, and that's it. So I'm not saying you don't have to look at it in more detail, but I'm hoping that now that we've been exposed to this and we realize this is a tool that might serve us, we can find a facilitator at some point and kind of dig in a little deeper and let Dan dig into it and see if he has questions for us or where he needs to or would like to work with us differently, right? Okay?
Yeah.
And that was it. It was just a
11,
little
I
wet in your
think I
appetite.
have done this.
What did it say?
Community engagement and advocacy. 11, someone said, I don't believe anyone has done this. That means refrain from speaking on board issues that we basically
I
have
saw
no. That's true.
Right, so great learning tool. I will tell you, associated with that, Suzanne and I both were really, no presenter's gonna be perfect. Some were a little drier than others, but that's a great tool. So we had several people tell us it's part of their policy that incoming board members are expected to engage in some of these programs. So just food for thought. A lot of
That's not
them-
the whole, this was one of the things that you were exposed to while we were there, one of the sessions, and I think it was good for us to go through this, to say, oh, well, how are we doing? And then focus in on areas that we think we could do better, but the whole experience overall, at the MASB was really helpful for us
Very.
as seasoned reps, but then we found people that were there, they said, well, we go to this every year because you're engaging with fellow board members, and intentionally splitting up and going into different settings to learn and grow. And I think then you could start to pick, the value I see in something like this is have a facilitated discussion, so that it could go through this, but then also it could guide, oh, well, we as a group want to work on this area or this area, and then maybe when we go to a training or a class where Nicole says, oh, I will go to this one, and 2 people go to that class, and then bring that learning back. So, just even in the few that we went to, I picked up quite a bit.
So hopefully, if you are comfortable with this, maybe we come up with some idea that you are expected to do 101, finance, and law. Maybe it's that. I will tell you, a lot of boards say do the whole 100 level, isn't that 8 classes? You seem to know this better than me.
It's 101 through 109.
Yeah, so just ponder that, and if you ever have a chance to look at a website, I think that would serve us really well. Nicole went last December, and you and Chip and Mike, 2 Decembers ago, and Dan, Julie and I sat down and talked about how this would be a good supplement, because I don't know if you guys remember, but Dan did a really nice orientation with you, but it's once. And are there other ways and other places and other networks that you can tap into that might solidify content or information or whatnot? So
I'm curious of the
ponder that.
history of why this wasn't something that was consistently being done anyway. I mean,
Well, anyways, thank you for going. It's fantastic. It's really great.
yes, no, I just wondered if there was a story too, but,
No, it's a great organization, and I think there was a sense at one point that we were able to do this in-house, but again, I think the statewide association is helpful. Our work is complex, whether it's board, a superintendent, any of these areas, and networking to help through the complexity makes a big difference.
Well, if there is information out there about, like, yes, take classes 101 through 109, like something specific, because, I mean, I get their emails,
Right.
and I get like 15 emails a day, like, I
Right.
just kind of like,
Right.
delete, I can't
Yeah.
comprehend, I can't go through all of that, like, I don't know where to start.
Maybe you took some, did you?
I did, I took some really early last winter, they were still all virtual, and maybe they still are, I don't know, but you guys were in person for your
Well, we went
session.
to the big,
We went to the convention.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm always game for a training session, I like that kind of stuff, so I did sit through 2 of them, I thought they were just okay, but again, they were just virtual, and so I don't know that I was getting the full feel for what they had to offer, but I don't know why they wouldn't be helpful for everybody in some capacity, because even sitting down with Dan was great, but that is early
Yeah.
days.
Right.
Early
Right.
days when you don't even know.
Right, you don't know what they
You
ask.
want to know less of what you don't know.
Right.
And we all talked about that a few times, you asked something like, we did talk about this, but I get it, because if it's not contextual, it just kind of bounces around and bounces back out again.
Yeah, and I think the modality, whether, you know, if you're taking a virtual one that had, then that we're all learning from that. I mean, we're all into
Yeah.
education and lifelong learning, so I feel like that was great for us to go. It was fun to sit in the one-on-one class.
I think the goal was to change our policy, right, so that it's kind of required to
Yes.
do this.
So if you get a chance, just look at the,
Yeah.
find the 101 classes, just two, and I'd love to know what you took.
And I can register everybody, there is a board
Right.
budget for that.
Right.
So
Okay.
just contact me and let me know which courses you would like to attend, and I can take care of all that for you.
Did I ask this before, can you get sketches for those? Do you know?
Yes,
You can?
I think-
yes,
Yeah.
because that was how they did the whole
Okay.
sign-in to the beginning.
Yes, Susanna, we're like, we don't need that.
I know, you don't need sketches.
But
But
what
like,
makes
that's what you do, yes, so that would.
What made me sad is it would be really cool if they would set up that conference, so it was after the election date, and it's not next year, I think it's in Traverse City, and it's a little before, but we will get a tap into,
Yeah,
isn't that a
okay.
bummer? Whether it's virtual, or if there's some other time to do it, I know, because we thought the in-person was pretty cool too, but you did a couple online, didn't you? Or no?
I did, well, I watched a couple, but yeah,
Okay.
but, yeah.
So you get a midwinter conference too.
Yeah.
Oh, they do,
Yeah.
okay, again,
Yep.
still learning as we go.
Connected, 12 seconds more, think about it, just something to think about. Do we want to redo the cultural competency? When we talk about doing these,
Yeah.
okay, because we have 2 board members who didn't have that opportunity, whenever it was, 3 years ago. The board members had the opportunity to do,
I did it outside of here, did we all do it? No.
we had the opportunity to.
I think we did it, yeah.
Yeah, not everybody did it, but,
I did it through another source.
yes, you had a different source, but that came up in my conversation today in my meeting with Scott, and I thought, I'm just gonna ask the board to think about whether we want to do that, and it's something else kind of like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we don't know what we don't know, and
Yes.
Scott shared with me one that really surprised him. Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could give us a little bit of information on what that means.
The cultural intelligence center.
Yes, cultural
assessment, right?
intelligence, it's an evaluation of how well do we operate in communicating with people of other cultures? Are we prepared? Are we preparing our students to be able to go out into the global world? It's not about, I mean, unfortunately, this is another somewhat co-opted term, perhaps. So this isn't about equity, it's about learning, it's about communication skills, it's about abilities.
How about if we get information and share that, and then
Yep.
put that on our next agenda, that's a good idea.
Just something to think about.
I agree,
Okay.
that sounds good. Any other board communications? Okay, then could I please have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
A second.
We're adjourned.